If we can get past some of these sound blips or retweets or whatever they are and hear the substance. That was the point of the meeting. The meeting was never about endorsing. We made history today. We put better than 100 black preachers in a room with a GOP candidate. That's never been done before.
Did he listen?
He absolutely listened to us. This wasn't the first time. Third meeting with him. And in previous times, we just didn't have the time to get into our issues. But as the more we got into the issues, we determined that it was necessary for us to come back again today.
So you don't think he's a racist?
I don't believe that. Again, I believe that his ego and his gravitas is so big that he doesn't have to pander to anyone. And I don't believe that I was being pandered to, or as you know, some say that we are his token, so to speak, in order to go out and grab votes for him. That's not the case.
All right, so Reverend, let me ask you. You were invited to the meeting. You chose not to attend. You are here in New York today, but you chose not to attend.
Yes.
You just heard Pastor Davis say he doesn't feel he was being pandered to. He doesn't feel Donald Trump's a racist.
Yeah, I think that he's a pawn. I think it's regrettable. I'm here as a preacher and as a black man to say that I vehemently oppose the candidacy of somebody who has been outlandishly offensive to every minority group in the country. From the Latino community, African Americans, women, physically challenged, and all the more Pastor James and Bishop Scott, who was the chair of this meeting, come from Cleveland. For a year, the Cleveland community has been in an outcry looking for justice for Tamir Rice. And Donald Trump hasn't spoken to any of that. We've not heard anything about mass incarceration, nothing about economic inequity, nothing about militarization of police. And the reality is, this meeting was pulled together because of a rally that took place in Alabama, where a protester from Black Lives Matter was roughed up, and Donald Trump said to the press that he believed he deserved to be roughed up. Now, to that end, if you will not meet with Black Lives Matter protesters, let me find 100 black preachers who are not civically and socially engaged, who will in fact find a connection to the Black Lives Matter protesters who are engaged with this conversation.
All right.
It is a very disheartening.
So, yeah, let's have a conversation
If I could jump in right there, because we're talking about Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, that discussion doesn't need to be had on Fifth Avenue. That discussion needs to be had at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue underneath our current administration. All these things that are going on right now in our communities is because of the people that are in charge right now, and not necessarily the ones that are coming down the pipeline. With respect to Black Lives Matter, with respect to our issues, all of these things were addressed in this meeting. And if Dr. Bryant would see, I can't cut off someone because of something they said. We're not going to always like what each person says. And so I'm not throwing it away. And so even with Dr. Bryant, Dr. Bryant has gone so far to go out on Twitter and call the people that were in that room prostitutes. And I'm wondering...
He just called, let's just say, right here at this table, you just called...
Yes,
Pastor Davis a pawn.
He called me a pawn.
And
but he called them a prostitute and said that we're using our pulpits as polls.
Yes.
Okay.
Right,
so
I'd
like to give a redress.
I'm wondering if the women in that room, the women, female pastors in that room, appreciate being called prostitutes, and I'm wondering if their husbands, in fact, agree with being called prostitutes.
I want to apologize because prostitutes get money, and the 100 that went in there walked away with nothing. They did it for free. So there's another word for that, and I would not use that language on the family channel. What I would suggest is that you couldn't find 100 white pastors to do the endorsement, not 100 rabbis, not 100 imams, but you can find whenever it is that there's poverty, wherever there's poverty, you can always find a capitalist who will always exploit poor people who are privileged just to be in the room. He's glad to be in the room with no policy and no promise.
This from the guy that's a relevant town. Okay. Yes. And so in that regard, we're not there for relevance. The first couple of meetings were in private, but then someone inadvertently put a flyer out, and then Dr. Bryant because that's what he does, he grabs the flyer and takes it out into Twitterverse. And so he even used the term that Donald Trump is the devil and we're meeting with the devil.
Said that.
You said, of course, he probably took the tweet down. But here's what I'm saying, that if he's the devil.
easy
I'm
to
wondering, when did he
attack me.
become the devil?
So
Because
let me ask you,
he
because I think
he
it
was
was
actually on his spin-off show, The Ultimate, whatever it was, with Omarosa. Yes. So I'm wondering, when you were cashing Donald Trump's check, was he the devil, or did he evolve it to become the devil in 2015?
He's full of sound and fury. I'm talking about policy. What is the policy?
Exactly. Let's get out of the
what is
chatter
the
and into
policy
policy
that African Americans are marginalized, are manipulated, and not a part of the economic structure? What is the economic policy that you go back to Cleveland with?
This was the purpose of the meeting.
Okay, share
we talked
with
about
us.
tax incentives.
You've given the endorsement.
Okay, so
as far as
then what did
3
he say
hours of the meeting,
specifically on the issue?
probably 2 of the 3 hours
One policy.
were on economics. It was with respect to tax incentives to bring businesses into the inner city, because poverty is our issue. Okay, and so if we deal with poverty at that level, as far as in inspiring entrepreneurship and getting businesses back going, right now under this administration, black folks are worse off than we've ever been. 2009, we were at about 24%. With respect to the poverty level. Now it's increased. Our wealth gap has increased, 18,000 to 142,000 for whites. And so this is all under the current administration. And so anytime you go to listen to someone other than the normal Democrat rhetoric that we're fed, here comes the minions to chase after us to say, get back on the plantation.
Would you ever for anyone Republican?
I'm looking not on personality, but on principle. And while we're in the middle of transition, I am open.
My point is, would you ever vote for a Republican?
I would vote for who I thought had the best blueprint for black America. And at this point, I do not believe, based off of what we have seen and what we have heard, and my dear colleague Steele has not pointed out one policy that talks about economic development, African trade, nothing dealing with mass.
He just specifically talked about bringing businesses back into the inner city.
And how do you do that?
Tax incentives, once again.
Okay, so did he talk about that specifically, tax incentives?
Yes, he talks about that, so that if you reduce the taxes in the inner city, so that now you can draw a business or a corporation into that area, they have the incentive to put jobs in that area.
So that's what Donald Trump said he would do.
Yes, he said underneath his administration. And beyond that, there were other things that were talked about with respect to police and police brutality, and that how he would look at it through a different lens versus what's going on right now under our current administration with Barack Obama in the White House and with black folks as the Attorney General. And so he's saying that all these things will be looked at. With respect to the Black Lives Matter guy, yes, if someone walks in my church or someone walks in Dr. Bryant's church and disrupts the place, he's going to be asked to leave. Now, he didn't endorse the guy. He didn't command his minions, so to speak, to beat him up. That was the...
Are you okay with what Donald Trump said, that guy deserved to be roughed up?
I'm not okay with that. That's ridiculous, of course. Okay. But I'm able to chew the meat, spit out the bones with anyone. That's just like I wouldn't throw Dr. Bryant away because he called us prostitutes. But he should be thrown away. He probably should have his ministerial credentials revoked. Because I wouldn't call any of my brothers out of that name.
The word you were using, you didn't say it, I will say it, was rape. That was the word you were saying.
Well, I think, again, what it is really very disheartening that these preachers walked away with private promises while we're in the middle of an open presidential election. The policies that were discussed behind closed doors need to, in fact, be open when he gets to Macon this evening to talk about what he wants to do for urban renewal and inner city development. It cannot just be behind closed doors. When that next debate comes, I would love to hear what we're going to do on the inequity of our public schools, on how it is that our African Americans, even with degrees, are at a lower pay scale.
Instead of attacking us, if Dr. Bryant would have signed up and came to the meeting, he would have heard these things. He would have heard about schools. He would have heard about the inequities. He would have heard about all of these things. Everything that he said was talked about in that room and will be echoed in the public as time progresses.
Go ahead.
Because I honor and appreciate the young people who are on the front line in Chicago, Minneapolis, and the young people he doesn't know in Cleveland who are a part of the Black Lives Matter movement. And if he would say, as Governor Christie has said, he would never meet with the young people of Black Lives Matter, the black preachers to go behind their back and go meet with them, I think is a slap in the face. And all the more, these are preachers who are not connected to the movement and have not been on the front line of what these young people are trying to accomplish. So I stood in allegiance with the young people who are in fact trying to effectuate change. If it's just about a conversation, then have a conversation with these young activists who are fighting night and day to see